Hundreds of movie and TV cowboys have galloped across our screens in the past half-century. Without exception, they've ridden the trail blazed by one man, William S. Hart. One of the great highlights of Bill Hart's spectacular career was Tumbleweeds, produced in 1925. Not long before his death in the 1940s, Mr. Hart reissued Tumbleweeds and introduced the film himself in one of his few appearances before a sound camera.
The story of Tumbleweeds marks one of the greatest epochs of our American history. It tells of the opening of the Cherokee Strip in the year 1889. 1,200 square miles, over 200 miles long, were thrown open by our government to those seeking good earth. Thousands upon thousands of them. The grangers, the homesteaders, the settlers, all awaiting that magic sound, the firing of the gun that was to send them on their way in that mad search for new homes.
In Tumbleweeds, Hart plays a rancher who has been framed and imprisoned to prevent him from staking his own claim. He has a plan to break out of the stockade, and a horse standing by. So expertly did Will S. Hart stage this land rush sequence that much of it was copied, almost shot for shot, in Cimarron, epic Western of the early talkies. This historic event actually took place on April 22nd, 1889, at high noon. The starting line was the Kansas border, and the wild dash over a rocky no-man's land was to reach and claim the best of the new government lands that had been opened. When Tumbleweeds was made, Hart was nearing 60. But this next riding sequence still stands today as one of the finest of all time. Hart, at the very end of his career, thrilled his fans with an incredible display of horsemanship, and all of it without a double. But let's go back to 1914, to the beginning of that career. Then, as writer, director, and star, Hart had begun to create a new kind of Western based to a large degree on his own experiences. He knew the American Indian, the hardships of cattle drives, the genuine comradeship of a man and his horse. To audiences throughout the world, Hart represented strength and integrity. A man who couldn't be bluffed. Few of today's so-called adult westerns have themes more outspoken than William S. Hart's of 50 years ago. Hell's Hinges, in 1916, the story of a gunfighting, sin-ridden town of the early West, an American Sodom and Gomorrah. The town dominated by two men. Hart, as the gunfighter, Blaze Tracy, and Silk Miller, owner of the Palace of Joy Saloon, as well as most of the rest of the town. In the East, a young parson, Jack Henley, is the concern of the elders of the church. They're afraid he's weak of character and decide to send him west, hoping that he will find himself in his new parish, the frontier town of Hell's Hinges. Accompanying Parson Henley is his sister, Faith. The last thing Silk Miller intends to tolerate in Hell's Hinges is the arrival of religion and law. The gambler tells Blaze, "Don't worry, the parson's first sermon is going to be his last." And on Sunday, when the town's handful of respectable people file into the makeshift church, Silk Miller makes his move. There was a basic turning point in many of the Hart pictures. The hero, bad on the outside, but good on the inside, reformed by the recognition of virtue in others. Hart often interwove romantic love and deep religious feeling in his scripts. I'm announcing here and now, there'll be no more dancing here tonight. The subtitles on the Hart Westerns had a recognizable flavor. They were the work of Hart himself and of C. Gardner Sullivan, greatest of the early screenwriters. This next title is a perfect example. I reckon God ain't wanting me much, ma'am. But when I look at you, I feel I've been riding the wrong trail. Hart's heroine here is Clara Williams. As Bill grew older, however, like many of today's stars, he turned more and more to younger and breathtakingly beautiful leading ladies, Anna Q. Nilsson, Eva and Jane Novak. Silk, pretending to have given up, suggests that Henley deliver a sermon to the saloon girls, who need it more than anyone. Henley takes the bait, foolishly thinking he is serving his holy cause. His most attentive listener is Silk's girl Dolly, queen of the dance hall. After the meeting, Dolly asks the parson to visit her privately. More of his message. Meanwhile, with Blaze helping, Hell's Hinges goes about building a church. Here was the classic Hart touch. A man at the crossroads, surrounded by the symbols of good and evil. In contrast, Henley, beguiled by Dolly, turns towards sin. The 1916 audiences were startled by this story of Hell's Hinges. The daring theme of a minister, not evil in himself, but weak-willed and lured to evil by others, is strangely parallel to Somerset Maugham's story, Rain, set in the South Seas, and done later in the movies as Sadie Thompson. Dolly is played by Louise Glaum. When this film was made, the vamp cycle started by Theda Bara was less than 2 years old, and Miss Glaum was Theda's #1 rival at playing female serpents. On the Sunday of the first service to be held in the new church, Blaze and Faith hear of Silk's ugly joke. In the morning, Henley is delirious. Faith is totally unable to reason with him. And Blaze goes to the next town for the doctor. Nothing too good for my friend the parson. Drinks on the house. As Blaze reaches the doctor, the mob decides to fire the church. The parishioners prepare to defend themselves. Finally, in desperation, the churchmen open fire. But lawlessness is triumphant. Blaze is on his way back to Hell's Hinges with the doctor, not knowing it's already too late to save Parson Henley. From the small band of refugees, Blaze learns of the town's terror. Like an apostle of vengeance, Blaze advances on the citadel of crime. Blaze sets about the destruction of Hell's Hinges as if divinely ordained to do so by the same Lord God Jehovah who in the Bible rained fire and brimstone on the evil cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. William S. Hart continued to turn out strong films like Hell's Hinges till the mid-1920s. By the time he retired, he had ridden through 67 features. When he faced the cameras to introduce the reissue of Tumbleweeds, he also said farewell to the movies and to his admirers. It was one of the most unusual moments the screen has ever known. A man delivering his own obituary.
My friends, I love the art of pictures. It is as the breath of life to me. But through those hazardous horsemanship that I loved so well to do for you, I received many major injuries that, coupled with the added years of life, preclude my again doing those things that I so gloried in doing. The rush of the wind that cuts your face, the pounding hoofs of the pursuing posse, out there in front, a fallen tree trunk that spans a yawning chasm, the noble animal under you that takes it in the same low ground-eating gallop, the harmless shots of the baffled ones that remain behind, and then the clouds of dust through which come the faint voice of the director. Okay, Bill, okay. Glad you made it. Great stuff, Bill, great stuff. And say, Bill, give old Fritz a pat on the nose for me, will you? Oh, the thrill of it all. Adios, amigos. God bless you all, each and every one.
William S. Hart died in Los Angeles Hospital on June the 23rd, 1946.